Satoshi Kirishima, a name that sends shivers down the spine of every true crime enthusiast. Everything begins in the city of Fukuyama, a city in Hiroshima Prefecture, where Satoshi Kirishima was born and raised. A seemingly ordinary individual, his path would veer into the extraordinary when he ventured to Tokyo for his higher education. At Meiji Gakuin University, his worldviews began to take a radical turn. Kirishima found himself drawn to anarchism, a political philosophy that advocates for a society free from enforced authority. He didn't just dabble in these ideas, he embraced them wholeheartedly, eventually joining the East Asia Anti-Japan Armed Front. This extreme left-wing group was known for its violent tactics, and Kirishima quickly became an active participant. In 1974, his affiliation took a lethal turn. Kirishima participated in a bombing, an event that would forever mark him as one of Japan's most wanted criminals. The bombings, carried out by his group, resulted in multiple casualties and injuries, leaving a dark stain on the pages of Japanese history. His face, captured in a mugshot, became something of an infamous icon, known and feared across the country. Following the bombing, Kirishima didn't turn himself in. Instead, he vanished, slipping into the shadows like a ghost. Starting from 1975, he successfully evaded capture, seemingly disappearing into thin air. The authorities were left grasping at straws, with only the haunting image of his mugshot as a reminder of the man they were hunting. A man of many faces, Satoshi Kirishima was more than just an anarchist. He was a chameleon, a fugitive, and an enigma. His story is one of intrigue and mystery, a narrative that continues to captivate true crime enthusiasts to this day. Stay tuned as we delve deeper into the life of this elusive figure in our next segment, The Fugitive Life. In 1975, Satoshi Kirishima disappeared, beginning a life on the run. This was no ordinary disappearance, but rather the vanishing act of a man who had become one of Japan's most wanted criminals. Kirishima had been a key participant in a bombing in 1974, a crime that had shaken the nation and painted a bullseye on his back. But like smoke in the wind, Kirishima slipped away, stepping off the grid and into the shadows. The life of a fugitive is a complex dance of deception and survival. For Kirishima, the key was to become someone else entirely. He adopted the pseudonym Hiroshi Uchida and chose a seemingly ordinary town for his hideaway, Fujisawa. It was here that he began his new life, under the radar and away from the watchful eyes of the authorities. But how does one hide in plain sight? How does one erase their past and become someone else? For Kirishima, it was about blending in, becoming a part of the tapestry of everyday life. He frequented local bars, worked in construction, and maintained an unassuming demeanor. His was a face among the crowd, an identity shrouded in ordinariness. The man who had once been a notorious anarchist was now just Hiroshi Uchida, a name as common as the setting sun. But the life of a fugitive is not without its challenges. The constant need to maintain the facade, the fear of discovery, the isolation, it's a life lived on a knife edge. Yet, Kirishima managed to live this life for nearly 5 decades, a testament to his tenacity and cunning. What's more, he carried with him a secret that would only come to light years later in the most unexpected of ways. But that's a story for another scene. For now, let's linger on the image of Kirishima, living under his pseudonym, navigating the world incognito. A ghost in the crowd, Kirishima lived a life of anonymity, hidden in plain sight. Behind the man lay a trail of destruction and despair. The bombings executed by the East Asia Anti-Japan Armed Front were not just a series of chaotic events, but a calculated campaign of terror that rippled through the heart of Japan in the 1970s. At the heart of this turmoil was Satoshi Kirishima, a man whose convictions led him down a path of violent rebellion. His involvement in these bombings was not merely peripheral. He was an active participant, his hands stained with the same explosive residue that scarred the face of his homeland. Let's delve into the grim details. The bombings were not random acts of destruction. They were targeted blows, aimed at symbols of authority and power. Government buildings, police stations, and corporations bore the brunt of the front's fury. Each explosion was a message, a defiant roar against what the group perceived as oppressive forces. The impact was devastating. The bombings resulted in multiple casualties and injuries, each one a tragic testament to the group's ruthless tactics. Innocent lives were caught in the crossfire, their worlds shattered in the blink of an eye. The debris of the bombings was not just rubble and shattered glass, but the broken lives of those left behind, and yet despite the destruction they caused, the front saw themselves not as villains, but as revolutionaries. In their eyes, the bombings were necessary acts of rebellion against an oppressive system. Kirishima saw himself not as a terrorist, but as a freedom fighter, a man fighting for what he believed was a just cause. But to those who bore the brunt of their attacks, the front were terrorists, pure and simple. Their bombings were not acts of rebellion but acts of terror. In 2024, a deathbed confession sent shockwaves through the nation. In the quiet corridors of a Kanagawa hospital, a man known as Hiroshi Uchida, bearing the weight of a terminal stomach cancer diagnosis, made a stunning revelation. He was not Hiroshi Uchida. He was Satoshi Kirishima, the elusive anarchist and member of the East Asia Anti-Japan Armed Front, who had been on Japan's most wanted list since the mid-70s. This was a man who had successfully evaded the law for almost 5 decades, living under a pseudonym in the quiet city of Fujisawa. His life was unremarkable, his demeanor unassuming. He frequented a bar, worked in construction, and managed to blend seamlessly into the fabric of everyday society. But beneath this cloak of normalcy, Kirishima harbored a secret that would, in his final days, come to light. Upon his admission of identity, Kirishima was promptly arrested. The news of his capture, although belated, brought a sense of closure to a case that had been cold for years. But the story did not end there. To confirm the man's claim, a DNA test was ordered. In a cruel twist of fate, cancer claimed Kirishima's life before the results could be released. 3 days after his confession, Satoshi Kirishima, the infamous anarchist, breathed his last. But even in death, Kirishima's story continued to unfold. The DNA test results came back, indicating that the man who had lived as Hiroshi Uchida was, in all likelihood, Satoshi Kirishima. The revelation sent ripples through the nation, reopening old wounds and stirring up a storm of questions. How did he manage to evade capture for so long? How many lives had he touched under his assumed identity, and what drove him to finally confess? Even in death, Kirishima's revelations continued to haunt the nation. The enigma of Satoshi Kirishima, from his years as a fugitive to his deathbed confession, remains a chilling reminder of a past that refuses to stay buried. Satoshi Kirishima, a name etched in infamy, left a legacy that continues to stir debate. His actions, driven by anarchic ideologies, have left an indelible mark on the annals of Japan's history and the world of true crime. Kirishima's life on the run, his involvement in the bombings, and his subsequent revelation have all contributed to a narrative that has perplexed and intrigued many. A member of the East Asia Anti-Japan Armed Front, Kirishima was a key figure in a series of bombings that left a trail of casualties and injuries in their wake. These acts of violence, carried out in the name of rebellion, have left a profound impact on the collective consciousness of Japan and beyond. The reactions from the victims' families to Kirishima's late revelation were a mix of regret and relief. Regret, because Kirishima was found too late to face justice for his actions. Relief, because the mystery surrounding the identity of one of Japan's most wanted criminals was finally put to rest. His death, while under a pseudonym, brought closure, albeit incomplete, to a saga that spanned nearly 5 decades. The public's response to Kirishima's life and crimes has been varied. While some see him as a symbol of resistance against perceived injustices, others view him as a criminal who caused unnecessary harm and chaos. His story has sparked debates around the ethics of rebellion, the impact of radical ideologies, and the boundaries of law and order. In the realm of true crime, Kirishima's tale is a fascinating study. His ability to evade law enforcement for so long, his decision to live under a false identity, and his eventual revelation all add layers of complexity to his story. His life, filled with intrigue and mystery, continues to captivate true crime enthusiasts, prompting further exploration and analysis. Satoshi Kirishima, a man shrouded in mystery, continues to be a subject of fascination long after his death. His legacy, marked by rebellion, subterfuge, and violence, serves as a chilling reminder of the lengths to which individuals can go in the name of their beliefs.